What if the future of Ethereum scalability is not about Layer 2 at all? What if the most efficient blockchain of the next decade is being built quietly in India, not Silicon Valley? And what if the real innovation is not faster blocks or cheaper gas, but a protocol that can scale infinitely as more people join? That project is Shardeum, and its mainnet launch in 2025 could mark the beginning of a new era for EVM blockchains. Let us start with where the world stands today. 25. Ethereum ETFs are live. Liquidity is returning to risk assets. The Federal Reserve and the European Central Bank have both begun to ease rates. Capital is flowing again. But this time, institutions are looking for sustainable infrastructure, not just yield. They want networks that can scale, remain decentralized, and still stay compatible with Ethereum's ecosystem. Layer 2 promised that. But they delivered fragmentation. Shardeum wants to fix that. And this is where the story begins. Most blockchains slow down as they grow. More users mean more data, more storage, more bottlenecks. Shardeum claims the opposite. It becomes faster the larger it gets. Let that sink in, because it rewrites one of the oldest assumptions in blockchain design, that throughput and decentralization cannot grow together. This one detail changes everything. Shardeum was founded by Omar Syed, a systems architect who worked on NASA projects, and Nishal Shetty, the founder of WazirX. The vision was simple but radical. Build an EVM-compatible Layer-1 that scales linearly through dynamic state sharding, meaning every new node adds more capacity without splitting the network apart. In other words, infinite scalability with true decentralization. Sounds impossible? Here's how it works. Traditional sharding divides the blockchain into static pieces called shards. Each shard handles a subset of transactions, and validators work inside those boundaries. It improves speed, but it fragments state so smart contracts on one shard cannot easily talk to another. That is why most EVM developers avoided sharded systems. They break composability. Shardeum's breakthrough is dynamic state sharding. Instead of static partitions, state is distributed dynamically based on demand. When traffic rises, new nodes join automatically and take over part of the workload. When traffic falls, nodes can exit without breaking consensus. Every node stores only a fraction of the global state, but the network always remains one unified chain. Think of it as the cloud model of blockchain. The more nodes you add, the more scalable it becomes. And because it is EVM compatible, every existing Ethereum smart contract can deploy directly without rewriting code. That is the magic. Scalability without isolation. Pause there for a second, because this approach flips the Layer 2 narrative on its head. Rollups and sidechains depend on Ethereum for settlement. Shardeum does not. It is its own Layer 1 built to scale Ethereum's logic, not depend on it. And for institutions seeking blockchain infrastructure in 2025, that matters. Reliance means risk. Self-sovereignty means control. But how does Shardeum maintain consensus across dynamic shards? Here's the real unlock. It uses Proof-of-Quorum, a variant of proof-of-stake optimized for fast finality. Each node participates in smaller committees that validate transactions within microseconds. As shards adjust, committees reshuffle dynamically, ensuring no single node or group can dominate. This design keeps latency low, around 1 to 2 seconds per block, even when the network grows. Early testnets processed over 100,000 transactions per second in simulation environments, far beyond Solana or Polygon's current averages. Now here's the part most people miss. Because Shardeum is energy efficient, running a node does not require high-end hardware. Anyone with a laptop can join. That opens the door for decentralized global participation, something institutions increasingly value as regulators demand transparent, accessible networks. It is not just theory. In 2024, Shardeum ran 3 major testnets: Liberty, Sphinx, and Betnet. Early 2025, the Shardeum testnets brought in more than 1.4 million participants. They also reached more than 171,000 validators on ordinary hardware, which was one of the highest numbers seen on a Layer-1 test network. By the end of March 2025, the team reported more than 171,000 testnet validators running Shardeum on everyday devices. At that time, it was the highest public validator count for a testnet. Shardeum went live on mainnet on the 5th of May 2025. Later in October 2025, it started rolling out the full EVM mainnet together, with the token redenomination at a ratio of 1 to 240. From that point, the project moved from an experiment into an economic network. Now here is where it gets interesting. Every new network claims scalability. But Shardeum is focusing on economic scalability, the ability to keep transaction costs stable regardless of demand. Its design keeps gas fees predictable by linking node rewards to network utilization. If demand spikes, more nodes join. That increases supply of compute and keeps prices flat. It is similar to how cloud computing balances load across servers. This model could redefine blockchain economics altogether. For Ethereum 2025 investors watching the Layer-1 race, that is a key differentiator. Because scaling technology is one thing, sustainable economics are another. And Shardeum is the first network trying to solve both simultaneously. Now let us talk about the smart money. In early 2025, several global and Asia-based crypto investors were said in community channels to be exploring validator and ecosystem participation on Shardeum. No formal public investment round was announced at that time, so this part of the story should be treated as early-stage interest only. Several Web3 and fintech teams in India said they would test payments, gaming, and digital identity flows on Shardeum once the EVM mainnet was live. Their main reason was the combination of low fees and the way Shardeum can add more capacity when traffic grows. While these developments are still in progress, they signal something important. The next phase of institutional adoption may not start in New York or London. It might start in Mumbai. Because for regulators and enterprises in emerging markets, local infrastructure matters. And Shardeum is positioning itself as the India-native Ethereum built for billions of users, not just millions. But here is the catch. Dynamic state sharding is complex. It introduces synchronization challenges between nodes joining and leaving constantly. Maintaining security in a system that evolves every second is non-trivial. Shardeum's developers have spent the last year refining a checkpointing system that re-anchors the network every few minutes to prevent state drift. If that system fails, the consequences could be severe. Yet, according to the latest mainnet audits, the architecture is holding strong. In early load tests, uptime exceeded 99.98%. And that reliability is precisely what institutional players look for. They do not need the fastest chain. They need the most predictable one. Now let us zoom out. Why does this matter in 2025? Because the blockchain landscape is entering its consolidation phase. After years of experiments, the market is rewarding efficiency, interoperability, and real-world application. Ethereum remains the gravity center of Web3. Solana and Avalanche are scaling user experiences. But the EVM ecosystem still lacks a base layer that can grow with the internet itself. Shardeum wants to be that base layer. If it succeeds, it could absorb an entire generation of developers and users priced out of Ethereum mainnet. And that could shift the balance of power across Web3. Pause there for a second, because this is more than just technology. It is policy. India has recently softened its stance on digital assets, rolling out a framework for tokenized securities and sandbox programs for regulated crypto experiments. Shardeum's foundation has been part of these discussions since 2024. That gives it something most protocols lack: regulatory proximity. If India embraces Web3 infrastructure at the state level, Shardeum could become the default blockchain for public sector and fintech integrations across South Asia. That is not hype. That is potential real-world adoption at scale. But every opportunity carries risk. Let us be clear. Competition is fierce. Polygon 2 is integrating its own zero-knowledge aggregator chain. Celestia is pioneering modular data availability. And Ethereum itself is preparing for proto-dank sharding upgrades that may reduce the need for external scalability layers. If those upgrades succeed, Shardeum will have to prove it offers unique advantages beyond speed. That means ecosystem building, developer support, and enterprise onboarding will determine its survival. Fortunately, the signs are encouraging. The Shardeum DAO has allocated 5% of token supply to long-term ecosystem grants. Dozens of dApps from DeFi aggregators to gaming platforms have already announced migration plans post-mainnet. And education initiatives like Shardeum Leaders Academy are onboarding developers at record pace. Momentum is building, but sustainability is the key test. So let us ask the big question. Can Shardeum scale Web3 without breaking it? On paper, yes. Dynamic state sharding solves the bottlenecks that held back previous Layer-1. Its economic model aligns incentives for users and validators. And its geographic positioning taps into one of the fastest-growing developer bases in the world. But technology alone does not guarantee adoption. Narrative does. And right now, Shardeum's narrative is strong. It is the story of a global South blockchain challenging the old order of crypto infrastructure. It is the story of scale meeting inclusion. It is the story of a network designed not for speculation, but for utility. And in a cycle where utility matters more than hype, that could be exactly what the market rewards. If you value deep research like this, subscribe to Crypto Wayfarer. Because we are not chasing hype. We are decoding infrastructure. Shardeum's mainnet launch is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a new chapter in how blockchains scale the world. Stay sharp. Stay strategic. And keep wayfaring.